logistically, you traveled with 500 rolls of film. Were you developing them on the road? Were you sending them home? How were you archiving them and keeping track of them? Did you just come home and sort through them later, or were you somehow indexing and keeping track of everything that you were working with in real time?
Yeah. So I was again. I didn't keep a journal. I didn't even keep notes about where I was. Although I did have a map that I traced my travels on, but it was I would say it was a mistake not to be more thorough in my note taking, because there are photographs where I am just not sure exactly where they were taken. Um, and the way that I worked was I I mailed back my film as I finished them. I would put them in kind of boxes of maybe, I don't know, 20 or 30, or a a sizable box, and I was shooting at the rate of about 2 rolls a day, which with 70 images. And at that time, in the early 70s, when I first started, people's jaws would drop to the ground when I would tell them about I took 70 pictures a day, because they just simply could not imagine how you could take that many pictures, because they in their own lives had a Brownie camera, and like our family, I looked at some of these images. They would do a roll of 24 in a year.
Mm.
You would get pictures of Easter and 4th of July and Halloween all in one roll. It was like, and so the idea of taking 70 a day was considered outrageously extreme, just radical, just crazy. So I would take all those films and I would mail them back to my house, my mom, and ask her to put them in the freezer. So she had these frozen. I didn't have enough money to develop them. I'd have to come back, and then during my time of working, I would be earning money. And the first thing I did with the money was to pay for the development of the film. So there was a really, really long feedback loop of when I took a picture and when I actually saw the picture. It could be a year or more. And so first of all, that's a really bad way. I mean, that's a horrible way to do photography, is where you don't get to see what you're taking. Again, imagine you're doing a film, but you never saw any of the images. Were you getting it right? And the other thing was, these were all manual cameras. There was no automatic anything. You have to set the exposure. And so the question I always have is my camera even working? And so every, I think, couple of months, I bought a roll of black and white film, which I could get locally, and I could have it processed locally. And I would send a roll of black and white film I had 2 bodies, through each of my bodies, just to make sure that they were still working correctly, because I hated the idea of photographing and the camera's not working. How would I know? But the rest of the film I would send back, and then many, many months, years later, I would have it developed when I had enough money to pay for it, because it was very expensive from my perspective to take a picture. And I think I did some calculation recently that in today's money, it was equivalent of $5 a image, a shot.
Wow.
For the amount of money they had to pay for the film and to pay for developing it. It was close to about, in today's money, about $5 for each time you clicked the shutter. And so one of the things was my photography changed when it went digital, because there were a lot of things that I was kind of interested in and saw, but didn't record because it was just so expensive. I had to think about each time I pressed that shutter. And there were just little details that weren't my main thing that I kind of didn't photograph that I do now when I'm photographing. I kind of have more of these collections of images of things that I wouldn't have spent the money in the past to do. And I kind of wished I had, but it was just too expensive for me to spend $5 today money on.